Hello and welcome to this COMP3218 game design and development video from the University of Southampton. My name is Tom Blount, I am one of the lecturers on the course and I am joined here today by...
Johan Daniel Marino, one of the demonstrators.
Brilliant. So we're going to be looking at some more of our students' first courseworks. Johan, could you tell us a little bit about what we asked the students to do for this?
Yeah, of course. So we did ask them to create a game based on a course dynamic. And they had to choose a single core dynamic and really try to, work on it and show that they understand it and create a tutorial level around that.
Brilliant. All right, let's take a look at our first game. Okay, and this is Sorcerer's Endless Nightmare. So you've got a nice little title screen again. We've got some lovely background music. We've even got an options thing that I can tweak the volume a little bit, which is nice. Let's start with the tutorial. That seems sensible. So, heck, we've got a thing coming towards us. WSD to move, mouse to aim, and left click to shoot. Okay. So far so good. I would maybe have waited until the player had first started moving before we spawned that first enemy, but, we're incentivized to learn quick. There we go. So we killed a thing, we got a gem. Let's get that gem. Ooh, heck.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so white is common, purple is epic, blue is rare. What's green then? Because this one's green. This is the power screen. When you level up, you get 3 random powers to choose from. The first 3 can be common, rare, epic, or legendary. It would be nice if those words were highlighted in the same colours. So I'm guessing epic is better than rare, so this one's actually quite good. Or legendary, whilst XP boost and full heal will always appear. So this green one will always be here. I don't know why it's green. Try out... Oh, okay. Interesting.
Explosion, yeah.
So either these are... Either this... what's the word? Prompt is contextual, or they've got like a fixed first role so that they can talk about it in the tutorial. Either way that they've decided to do that, that's quite good, because it means that we're getting specific references of you should try this. Oh, is it purple because I can't actually click on any of the others as well, so they're making sure that I can do this. So now I can right click to cast explosion. Oh wow, that obliterates them, doesn't it? And then we've got our XP thing here. Nicely done, and look, you've got imagine that, what luck. Double tapping in a direction will allow you to teleport a short distance. So double tap. Okay, so we've got some more contextual tutorial prompts. So there we go.
I see.
Let's try that again. Explosion. So let's try that again. So I guess there's some sort of cooldown on it because I can't use it every time. Ugh. More enemies. Okay, so I've got to make sure there's a gem somewhere down here. Yes. Nicely done. I think you've got what it takes to take on the main game. Head back to the main menu and you can see how long you can last. The 3 enemies you just fought are very unique. Demons are fast, orcs have more health, and undead hit harder.
Oh, okay.
Which of those was which? So, kind of nice, as it's nice that they've effectively got, not quite loading screen tips, but little tips between levels at least. It feels like that could be a thing that they could introduce within the gameplay. So we start off with... So it looks... I'm guessing this is an orc, because it's green and it's got tusks. But I've already forgotten what the tip said about orcs. Was it undead were tough, demons were fast, and orcs were something else?
Stronger, maybe?
Yeah. But it'd be cool if there was a way to showcase that within the level. Your spell can... There's a lot of words on these. Upgrading further increases the number of... We'll go with that. Okay, so I really should be lining them up a bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Wave complete. So we've actually got another level up there. It's interesting that we get XP based on the number of enemies we kill rather than just leveling up at the end of each level.
Yeah.
I feel like get the XP boost as early as possible. That's it. And then wow, in fact, let's go for that again. Ah, this is red now. I guess because we could, in theory, pick it.
Maybe.
But we're already at full health, right? I don't actually like the escape that much. I would rather have... Actually, I'm going to get more XP gains. Feels like, there's no point getting that later.
Yeah. So it says the UI, you have current wave, current level, the experience you need for the next level, and the remaining enemies.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, isn't there? There we go. Interesting. This is at level 6 of 5 now. Now it's at 7 of 5. We may have found a small bug. So if I can just constantly level this up, will I get infinite XP eventually? Or is this all just going to waste? Because the thing is, I don't really want any of these things. These are all common. I'm going to save up for a legendary, so I might as well put it in there.
Now you have... is there music, by the way? And
yeah, there is. There's some nice music and sound effects as well. Do that again. I really like the particle effects as well of the spells we've got going on. None shall escape. When you use your primary spell, it fires... Ooh, yeah, let's go for that. That sounds great.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so the scaling of the XP is really interesting. It feels like it should be the sort of thing that happens at the end of every wave, rather than after a particular number of pickups. So having it at the end of every level means that the permanent XP boost wouldn't work. You'd have to get rid of that and replace it with something else. But it might be easier to balance the progression slightly. I mean, partly if this is actually bugged, then we're going to really break the pacing of it. But if you know that every level the player will increase a thing, rather than, well, if they've always increased the XP boost, they're going to be leveling faster than somebody that isn't. So how are you going to account for that in your pacing?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's sort of leaping ahead a little bit. But yeah, I think we've seen enough of the game itself to talk about it in terms of the mark scheme.
Yeah, sounds good. So where should we start? We have the first sub-criteria presentation, and I guess information design.
So we've got a lot of information on screen at once. We have the current level, the current XP, we have a bar showing that, we've got the remaining enemies, and we've got the current wave.
Yeah.
It feels like the bit in the middle in particular takes up quite a bit of real estate. And it's not important that I know what my current level is. It's only important that I know how far I've got to go to the next one. And knowing the exact number of XP isn't that useful either, because I don't remember how many each of these individual gems is worth.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also the countdown for the next wave, like small stuff like that.
Oh, okay, there's a boss. Is that because we're on wave 5, do you think?
Maybe.
So yeah, this bit in particular is sort of taking up a little bit of real estate. I think you could simplify a lot of this to just this green bar, but then maybe you'd get confused with health. I don't know, you'd have to have a clear way of differentiating it from, this thing's health bar.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I'm nitpicking slightly here, because overall they have all the necessary information. For the most part, it's clear. I think, like I say, they are maybe taking up a bit more screen real estate than they need to with that. Ooh, that's
wow.
This is going to be. There we go. Twin spell. Whenever you would cast it casts twice. I thought I was already doing that. Oh, now it casts out twice out of 2 directions. Perfect.
Okay, so do you think... So pretty much all key information is shown
Yeah, and I
It
would say
seems like
I would say it's probably towards excellent as well. So like,
yeah,
everything that is being shown clearly. Is maybe being shown almost in a way. It's being shown a bit too clearly. We don't need all of this taking up this space, but otherwise,
yeah, exactly.
I actually meant to heal myself there, not get more broken XP.
I mean, but it does feel now slower. You're gaining it a bit slower.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I would say between a good and an excellent for that. What do you think?
Yeah, I was thinking the same. Like, there's just a bit more for it to be clear, like completely in the excellent. Yeah, so that leads us to the graphics themselves.
And yeah, overall the graphics are really, really nice. Not only have they got sort of very clearly defined, sort of enemies and I guess different types of enemies, which also factors into the information design. Like they all work really nicely together. They're all these sort of like cute little slightly squashed looking sprites. Passage.
Yeah.
This feels like it should be way better than a common, but I'll take it. Like the particle effects following your things, the little explosions are nice. Like really smoothly animated. Yeah, I think we're. So what would you say? Consistent, effective, and appealing? Would you go as far as saying they're thematically resonant?
Thematically resonant. Yeah, in that case, what would that entail? Thematically resonant.
So perhaps like some extra sort of bits of feedback when we. So stuff to emphasize the themes, which I would guess is probably destruction or survival. So something to sort of really emphasize when we're taking damage or dealing damage, depending on which of those they're going for. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Blood spatters or something, or even just flashing the sprites as things take damage.
Interesting. Because I saw what their core dynamic is.
Oh, you're going to tell me it's something totally different?
No. It is survival.
Okay.
With, I mean, it does. Like so it is definitely around the excellent level. And thematically resonant. Because I can't think of like what could they do or add to.
Oh, like I was saying, something to emphasize, whether we're taking damage or dealing damage, like extra blood spatters and particle effects and things like that. But overall, yeah, it's excellent. Do you reckon then maybe it's between the excellent and the praiseworthy?
Maybe, yeah. Just if they did. Oh wow. That's nice.
That's kind of, although I'll be honest, the particles of this one I'm not a huge fan of because they sort of add a little bit of confusion maybe about where things are going to start taking damage.
I see. Yes. Yeah.
Although it is,
yes,
it's nice that they went to the trouble of adding it, but that looks a big one.
So, you're.
Oh, there's two.
Oh, there's
cool. Good.
Okay. Yeah. So, maybe between excellent and praiseworthy.
Cool. And then for audio, I think we're probably going to be in roughly the same area because we've got some nice background music, which I have turned down a little bit, so we may not actually be able to hear it. Can I? There we go. Doesn't actually seem to change it that much. But there is definitely music. There's some lovely little audio effects. There's like a ding as we collect a thing. There's like pew pew noises as we fire our fireballs. There's satisfying explosion noises. There's noises when we take damage as well.
Yeah. Okay.
There were some nice things where, for example, again, I think there's still room to improve it. Like for example, varying like some different background tracks for when we've got a boss level, or changing the tempo of it, or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And now that I've said that, I'm actually just gonna boost the sound a little bit. The music's as loud as I can get it, actually. Hang on a minute. Why am I level? Wait. Why am I back at level 1?
Oh, you died.
Oh, did I die? Oh, I died while I was trying to change the sound. Whoops.
Yeah, at some point it said game over and you did. I don't
This
think
is
you
this
noticed
is what I
them.
get for tapping out.
So yeah, about the audio. So do you think it's complementary and appealing effects in music? The excellent, at least.
Yeah, I think it's certainly at the excellent. I think. But yeah, I think
Sophisticated.
I actually,
Yeah.
you know, I'd almost say between excellent and praiseworthy, perhaps, because there are, in terms of the feedback that we were talking about of when if things are taking and receiving damage, which is sort of part of their core dynamic. That's like that bit is emphasized quite nicely. Sorry, I'm thinking about what power-ups I want. But yeah, sort of extra additional sort of effects, sort of that highlight the danger, for example. Perhaps the music or the audio change, like a thudding heartbeat when you're at low health to really emphasize that kind of survival thing.
Yeah.
Like there's like a couple of little extra bits of polish here and there that could be done, but otherwise, really nice.
So that leads us to the meaningful play and, in this case, the mechanics of the game. So it feels like there's quite a bit happening.
Yeah.
In terms of mechanics.
So we've got obviously moving, we've got blasting, we've got enemies, we've got slightly different types of enemies, both in terms of the little ones. We've got the sort of regular boss fight enemies. We have a shop, effectively, that we can spend our little gems in. We've got like progression systems. We've got a number of different things that we can buy in the shop. So shields, extra abilities, extra damage, extra movement abilities. I'll be honest, it's an impressive set of mechanics. I think we're at least at excellent, and I'm wondering if we are. Again, I think we're almost at praiseworthy.
It's complex, yeah, wide set of complex and complementary mechanics, yeah. Because there's quite a lot of intertwining between stuff, or at least it feels like that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. The individual mechanics themselves are quite simple, but because of the variety of them and the way they interact together, pushes it up towards praiseworthy.
Yeah, so in that case, if it was praiseworthy, do you think what could they add to make it?
That is a good question. What sort of complexity could you add to that?
Maybe different pickups as well, like different colored gems, so you can. But that's like a very minor thing.
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm most missing, sort of as I'm sort of looking at this, is the behavior of the different enemies. So they have slightly different stats. So some are stronger, some are faster, but they all do just run up to you and kick you in the ankles, right? Like if some of them charged up an attack, or had a ranged attack or something like that, or
different, yeah.
Like one of the sort of typical type enemies that's like the thing that looks a bit like a bull, and it will pause for a bit and then charge towards you and then turn around and do the different sort of patterns and things like that, which give me more choice and more reason for buying things in the shop. I think is something that would push it into the praiseworthy category, but I think it's definitely between the excellent and the praiseworthy at the minute.
Yeah, definitely. And how do the controls feel?
The controls feel really good, actually. Yeah, it's like a simple set of controls, because for the most part it's just moving and blasting, and occasionally I have a secondary attack I can use as well. The dash I'm sort of less of a fan of. In fact, I've stopped picking it up in the shop, because having to double tap a key when I'm trying to hold it down to move is something not ideal about it. I almost wonder if they'd bound it to space or something like that to dash in the direction that I'm already moving, it would feel a bit more
natural.
Natural and intuitive. However, the actual sort of basic controls are really good. So where are we looking at? Intuitive, smooth, usable controls. I don't think they've not gone for sort of much in the way of novelty, but that's fine. The set that they've got does exactly what is required for this kind of a game, so I would say they're excellent for controls.
Yeah, sounds about right. And now comes the bugs part, because the thing with the 7 out of 5, because I suppose that's like a bug, maybe.
I mean, that's probably a bug, right? It's either a bug in the UI where they've changed the maximum level to it and just not updated the UI, or it's a bug in that there is a maximum level and we seem to be allowed to go over it. It's not hugely game-breaking, and in fact, despite taking it quite a lot and possibly using it as an exploit, it hasn't seemed to break the progression that much. I don't feel like I'm ridiculously overpowered. And I don't know whether that points to if I hadn't been doing this, I'd be struggling, or I mean, maybe they're doing something really clever, sort of tracking how well the player's doing and accounting for that. I suspect not, but it's possible. But maybe just the levels are quite well balanced.
Yeah, so in this case, definitely not game breaking. And the game is quite complex from what I see. Like, there's a lot of stuff happening.
Yeah, there's like we said with the mechanics, there's a lot of simple mechanics, but there's a lot of them sort of all together. Oh no, I technically found another bug. I can't get that one. Oh no, it's absolutely broken now. I can't possibly play it. No.
Yeah. So excellent in this case would be a game is reasonably complex and there are no obvious bugs, and there are some very, very, very minor things as we see.
Yeah, so a good would be reasonably complex and there are infrequent bugs. Excellent
minor bugs. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, infrequent minor bugs. Excellent is it's reasonably complex and there are no obvious bugs. And prizeworthy is it's of higher complexity and there are no obvious bugs. And I think this is sort of leaning towards the higher complexity.
Yeah.
But there are a couple of, pretty obvious bugs, I guess. Which I guess means it's sitting between the good and the prizeworthy, so it might actually hit excellent there.
Excellent, yeah, like just in the middle. It feels like that, yes.
I've got to see if it applies to other powers as well, so I've got to live long enough to actually see the random ones appear in the same way. So that brings us to the actual brief, which was all about the level design, the tutorial, and so on.
Yeah, and the ghost risks and rewards
yes.
In this case. Because it feels like this game is very good with that, in the sense because the game itself, the mechanics really emphasize, do I risk getting this power up and maybe healing myself, or so it feels like there's quite a lot of...
So I was going to argue with you there and say, well, there's not that much risk and reward, to be honest. Like there's no reason to... It's not like I'm picking up money and I have to decide to save the money or something like that. I could just happily sort of run around in circles, level up a thing, and continue running around. It's not like there's a huge amount of risk to collecting the XP. But you're right, the one perhaps saving grace for them there is that... Where are we? When I do level up, here's a good example, I can quote-unquote waste a level up to heal myself. Potentially slightly undermined by the fact that one of these upgrades, and it was a common one at that, which really surprised me, it gives you regenerating health. Okay, so in terms of goals, obviously the goal is very, very clear. Survive for as long as possible, beat as many waves, level yourself up. Cool. Goals are really, really clear. I would say there is a somewhat limited set of risk and reward. I guess there's sort of like, is it risk and reward in choosing like the play style? Like picking, an explosion over an increase in max HP. Is that risk versus reward, or is that more about sort of just different styles of play, do you think?
I suppose the main thing we can think about is how a new player versus a player who has played this game a lot, does the play style differ? because if it does, or if a better player can choose better power-ups and can, risk more but get more, in that case I would agree there are risks and rewards. But can you think of something like that?
So in terms of the moment-to-moment gameplay, I don't think there is a lot differentiating that, because a new player strategy is going to be very similar to
exactly.
to an experienced player strategy, which is run in a circle and spam fireball. So I think the main sort of is do I quote unquote waste this level up to heal myself, or do I buy something that's more damage, which is going to let me survive longer? We've got -1 remaining enemies there. So I would say... So, for example, a good would be a clear and coherent set of goals, risks, and rewards. Satisfactory would be a coherent set. Pass would be a limited set. I think we've already said the goals are very, very clear and coherent.
Mm-hmm.
And there is an element of risk versus reward, but it's not as strong as necessarily it could be.
Yeah, so how would they have, for example, made it a bigger part of the game? If they had, I guess, different, or not only increase attack or heal, but something else as well.
Yeah, something to encourage riskier playstyles, like, I don't know.
Less health, but more attack, maybe.
Yeah, like literally a power-up that takes away half your health in return for extra damage for a round or something. Or there we go, there's the passive healing. Or I don't know if maybe the the one that gives you a ring of fire around you. If that ring of fire was incredibly powerful, which incentivizes you being right up close to things. So there's a number of different ways you could do it, but we should probably still figure out where we think they are at the minute, rather than just how they could improve it.
Yeah. So it does feel then, because the goals are good, but the other ones not as much. It feels like in the middle between pass and good. Maybe.
Yeah, which would put them at a satisfactory. Which would be a coherent set of goals, risks, and rewards. I would be inclined to maybe put them between a satisfactory and a good, because there is a clear and coherent set, even for the risks. It's just maybe it could have been developed a little bit further to get it all the way there.
Yeah. And what about the pacing?
It certainly ramps up. So we have, very similar levels. We've got the what's the word? The sort of boss fights every 5 levels, I think it is.
I think yes.
There's again, perhaps a small bit of oddness that we've got this small breather between each level. It is almost, I would say, could be extended a little bit, because I'm actually just struggling to pick up all of the gems. In fact, maybe a power-up that sort of magnetizes them a little bit would be kind of nice. I wonder can I deal more damage if I hit them? No. I was going to say, can I sort of almost get a shotgun effect if I sort of stand here? And I kind of can, actually.
So it definitely ramps up.
Yeah, I will say again that it's perhaps a bit weird that the upgrades happen independently of the waves. It feels like a very natural thing that you complete a level, you get to sort of stop, take a breath, pick an upgrade for the next level, and so on. Because this can sort of happen, halfway through a boss fight or something, which feels a little bit. I don't know. It's not bad, but it's not the choice I would have made, I think. That said, so pace it. Tension clearly rises over time. Yeah, we're definitely there. Kind of inherent in a lot of survival games where it's survive for as long as you can. There will be some element of just inherently rising tension. There is a coherent pattern. There are these sort of breaks. Again, the fact that you can get XP and sort of ding halfway through a boss fight maybe breaks that pattern a little bit, because I'm in the middle of a fight right now and I've stopped for as long as I want, rather than having to get to the end of the fight and then have that sort of rest period. But overall, I would say it's probably in the good category.
Feels like, yeah.
Maybe even sort of edging towards excellent, because in terms of the levels themselves, the progression of different types of enemies, the strength of different types of enemies, the gradually increasing sort of number of bosses every other level, or every however many levels it is done really nicely as well. So I think, yeah, between a good and an excellent.
I agree. Cool. And now that leads us to the tutorial.
Okie doke, in which case I will go back to the main menu so we can take another quick look at that. So yeah, overall quite good. Like, I think we said when we first saw it, it would be nice if that enemy didn't spawn until we'd learn to at least move, because I've got to read something down at the bottom of the screen while I'm being attacked from something at the top of the screen, which again is being slightly hidden by this bit of the UI. But other than that, I think the tutorial's mostly nice. We've got the little ding.
And the fact that they disable all the...
Except for the one they want you to pick, and they've got a set, or like a predetermined selection of quote-unquote random things that they can then sort of guide you through. Is nice. It would maybe be nice if we needed 2 XP gems to get to level 2, so that we could see that bar filling up as well. However, I think we get to see it now, right? Yeah, because we'll get ding. Yeah, so it's shown later on actually, which is fine. And then we've got to pick Sorcerer's Escape.
And then
do I actually have to use it, or can I just kill these things and end the tutorial? Or is it going to keep spawning things until... Yeah, so I never have to use that particular element of it. But in a way that's okay, because I never have to pick that power either. It's not something that I have to use to win the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
The only bit that it forces me to do is pick some powers from the shop, which, I mean, I guess technically I don't have to do that either, but that's probably a more component than that one control. Yeah, introducing the different enemy types in this way is like, so we see them in the previous level, but it only sort of tells us about them in this sort of top tip, which again, a little bit of a shame. It would have been nice to have seen, like, even like within this tutorial, tell us about the different enemies, like within it rather than after it. But otherwise, I think it's pretty good. So speaking of which, what would a good in the mark scheme be? So gradual explanation of gameplay and controls, fully aligned with play. So here's the thing. They have sort of put the tutorial in a separate box that's not in the normal play space. Like, we've got a linear corridor rather than the full arena, which, thinking about it, they could have done all of this in the main arena, right? There's no reason to constrain it in this way. But other than that, most of it is, sort of like natural gameplay. They're getting you to do a thing, they're explaining what to do next, they're getting you to do that thing, and so on and so on. So mostly it's like still aligned with play. There is quite a lot of reading in bits of it, particularly in sort of like where they're teaching you about the market or the shop or whatever you want to call it. But otherwise, yeah. So a good would be gradual explanation of gameplay and controls fully aligned with play. And I think that is probably... Like, we're probably there. For an excellent, they would need to do this through level design. And this is the thing. Because their level is just an open space, there's nothing within like the physical structure of the level, at least, that they can do to teach that. So it'd have to be in terms of the way that they spawn monsters or things like that. So there's almost an element of it where, for example, the bosses, like, they never tell you about bosses, but after 5 levels, one shows up, and it's pretty obvious that it's a bad thing because it's huge and has its own health bar. So perhaps between a good and an excellent, because there's not a lot that's being done through the like level or wave design, but there are some bits and pieces here and there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's... Yeah, that works. that leads us to the core dynamic, which I already mentioned was, I think, survival. Yes, yeah. So they say that the game, as a core dynamic is survival, and at first, during early stages of development, there were elements that would have suggested otherwise, such as a score counter for each enemy killed. And they realized that that would make it destruction, so they didn't do that. We also replaced an optional power-up of increasing score multiplier to a multiplier that increases the amount of EXP the player receives per crystal. And this motivates the player to live longer and kill more enemies in the higher ways to be able to gain more EXP and level up more, thus making them stronger.
Okay, yeah, that seems reasonable. I think, obviously, we're having to kill enemies to survive for longer, but they are deliberately making the choice that we want to, that it's surviving for a number of waves that is the goal, not killing the enemies. Like, killing the enemies serves the surviving longer, which I think works quite well. And yeah, so as far as I can tell, virtually all of the mechanics lead towards that. Like, you could have certainly have framed this game to make it destruction, right? And most of the mechanics would still support that. Like, a lot of the things in the store deliberately are, let you destroy more stuff. However, because there's the XP boost, because there's the sort of heal that you can choose to use as well to survive that a little bit longer, because some of the power-ups give you, shields and things like that, it sort of leans towards that, but mostly it's just the framing of live for as long as possible.
So, do we have a clear core dynamic that is supported by the primary mechanic?
Yeah, we do.
And that's the good. And excellent would be a clear core dynamic that is supported by an integrated set of mechanics.
And I think we're probably there as well.
Yeah, and just to see the prizeworthy would be a clear core dynamic that is supported by an integrated set of mechanics and other supporting dynamics. And,
now, given everything that I've just said about, destruction, I feel like it's kind of getting...
Yeah.
Is it fully there, or is it halfway between the two?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it could be actually there.
Yeah, I given everything I've just said, I think it probably is. Okie doke, so the last bit is feedback. So as alongside the games, we asked our students to hand in a little bit of report telling us about some of the feedback they'd gotten from the lecturers about their game and how they'd sort of adapted their development to take account for that. So what did they say about the feedback they were given and how they acted on it?
So the first feedback session, we were told that our game was mechanically a survival game. However, there are some mechanics in our game which promote the player to kill enemies in such a way that even if they don't survive as long, they could still get a higher score than someone who only kills enemies one at a time and survives longer. Therefore, the game's core dynamic would have been more destruction. We changed this so that instead of score, we would just show the number of enemies remaining, so that although players who are skilled can still complete the wave faster and level up faster, players who are slower will still have the same level of accomplishment even if they complete it slower. We were also told to provide a good risk to reward ratio, so we implemented a power-up system whenever the player levels up for them to become stronger. Also, as the game progresses, the enemies will also get stronger, faster and more durable, so killing them will be more difficult. But they also made it so they drop more EXP as well. Another piece of feedback we were given, mainly related to our game's tutorial. We were told that the player should first be guided through the game's basic controls and gradually introduce them to additional mechanics during the tutorial. The tutorial should also be more scripted, as we were told that choice in the beginning of the tutorial should not impact the rest of it. Therefore, we force the player to choose certain power-ups.
That's true, actually. So I said, it's an interesting choice to sandbox parts of the game, or rather, ring fence the tutorial away from the rest of the game, but because they're deliberately making you pick certain power-ups that you might not want in the game, that actually suddenly makes a lot of sense for why they decided to do that.
Yeah, and the last one is... Oh wait, damage and death are also very important thing the player should know, and should not be excluded or removed from the tutorial to make it easier. Players should know the consequences of being hit and eventually dying. That's a interesting one.
Yeah,
Yeah, so they don't give you infinite health. You can still get hit.
So that's interesting. I almost would say it's probably a good idea to prevent the player from dying mid-tutorial, but at least if you are going to kill them or have the possibility of them being killed, yeah, make sure at least they can quickly get back to where they were, and they don't have to learn bits that we've already know they can do if they die at a particular point.
Yeah.
But I think the tutorial is simple enough that that's not a big issue, and for the most part the rest of their feedback made a lot of sense, or rather the way they've responded to their feedback made a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I may have realised why the I'll talk about that in a moment. So yeah, in terms of the feedback, feedback has been addressed and the changes have been successful, so I think we're probably easily there.
Yeah.
Has it been interpreted and addressed?
I mean, they've definitely done a few different things, it feels like, than just what they were told.
Yeah. So I think they probably have, which means I think the feedback is probably up at the excellent level.
And the change, yeah. And I don't think we are at the prize-worthy, because the prize-worthy would be feedback has been interpreted and imaginatively addressed.
Yeah, I think the changes they've made are sort of totally reasonable and sensible and exactly the ones that you'd expect. Yeah, so I think I might have figured out why we can level this up. It's because when something reaches a max level, it's no longer put into the pool of stuff you can pick. But because this one is always there, it always shows back up. So maybe that's why. I don't know. That's me hypothesizing. But yeah, so for the feedback, I think overall excellent.
Excellent, yeah.
Yeah, which brings us to the end of this game. So let's move on to the next one. And this is the proof of work. So again, nice title screen, very, very sort of stylish and stylized, this one. Let's jump right into it. Okie doke. WSD to move, space to jump.
And R to reset.
And R to reset. Is this lava? Is this going to kill me? I suspect yes. Yes. Ooh, okay, so the camera movement is a little bit sensitive. Okay, so red thing's bad. Ooh. Camera movement, I don't know if it's just my mouse sensitivity, but the camera feels very, very twitchy. So I'm just going to be careful about how I get around that. So green, I assume good. Verification complete. So we've got... Oh, that went by quite fast. So we had a time, a total time, and then some other stuff. Okie doke. So we've got
which we'll pay attention next time. Okay.
Now we've got a
double jump.
Okay, and it's not one time only, so now that's just a thing that we can do.
So resets, total resets.
Yeah, that goes by really fast. Okie doke. So we don't have the power up anymore. We have to get it at the start of every level, but now we have it again.
Yeah.
I have a feeling I'm going to be stuck on this level for a while.
I'm sure you... Yeah.
I appreciate your confidence. First-person platforming is always a little bit tricky, and yeah, this camera is a little bit twitchy as well.
Yeah. I do remember when I played it. I think in the lab it was also a bit sensitive. It says
That's what it says. Okay, so we got pink one now. Dash. Okay. I was going to say, isn't space the control I use for jump? So I guess I can't.
It's double space.
So I can't dash and double jump at the same time, presumably.
Yeah.
And interestingly, the dash is almost exactly as long as slightly over the platform.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, so nice introduction for that power up though, because the level is, you know, clearly designed with that in mind. It's relatively simple, but it introduces it. Oh, I just realised it's tracking my total reset, so no. Okay, so now
now it's going to be a combining.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see if we'll have both the dash and the double jump at the same time, or whether one is going to like override and replace the other.
Yeah, that's going to be tutorialized, or at least you'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And do you have to press anything
fiddlesticks
to pick them up, or do they
just walk straight through it?
Okay.
I got overconfident there. Let's do this again. No.
And the last one.
There we go. Cool, so it looks like it replaces it, which makes sense.
And you drop it. Yeah.
Oh, do you drop? Oh, it drops behind you, I see.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's something that will get built into a puzzle. Oh, okay, so orange power up, orange thing on a wall, wire running to red thing, which I assume, red thing is that.
Okay. Shooter.
Oh, okay.
Left mouse
click. Have to. Let me just see if I can line that up. There we go. So thing goes green, thing appears. Now I have double jump. There we go. So I've noticed that the controls are still on the screen. It feels like it's probably safe to remove them at this point.
Yeah.
The R to reset, I don't know, maybe could hang around, but if we haven't learned how to move and jump by this point, we wouldn't be at this point, right?
Yeah.
Oh, hang on.
So that's starting to...
I was going to say, is there going to be a puzzle where we have to think about how we place a thing down?
So that's the dash, and you cannot... You can almost, but...
Okay, so get the orange thing, which will leave the blue thing there, and then...
And that should open the gate and let you...
And now I can get this and go up this way, and then dash. That's kind of nice. I like that. So again, it's using the same components that we've seen before, but adding them together for sort of more complexity. Ooh. Okie doke.
And this shows you, I suppose, the wires, I think. So if you shoot that one, it becomes green. And I suppose you can follow the wires if you cannot find the next one.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing in this thing, other than I've been taught shoot the orange things and good things happen.
Yeah.
But weirdly, this feels like
Oh.
All of the other puzzles have been about, you know, move around the space kind of a thing, whereas this is just, I can just stand here and just blap them and then stuff turns green. Did that door open when, or just activate when I got all the things? Yeah, that one was a little bit weird. Okay, so this one emits light. I was going to say this room seems very dark.
This is going to be.
I have a horrible feeling I'm going to be terrible at this.
Yeah, it was.
Now,
I think that was the hardest part of the game for me.
Now, in theory, if I were a really good player, I could like bounce across these gaps rather than taking the safe route.
Maybe.
But
I didn't have the.
Is there an advantage to doing that? Do I get rewarded for demonstrating my sort of skill and precision?
The reward you get is a shorter time, and at the end of the level, because it shows you time and total time.
Well, it also shows the number of resets and total resets. So that's what I'm going for. Like, which of those is the thing that I am being scored on, or should think that I am being scored on?
Do you have a? Oh. And do you want to start the marking?
Yeah, we probably should, shouldn't we? I'm getting distracted by all of these puzzles. Ooh, is that?
So.
Okay, I was like, is that some sort of like water effect, or is it just like the texture?
It's just the texture.
Oh.
Yeah. I think this is the last level as well.
Okay, so yeah, let's take a look at the mark scheme while I stumble around this puzzle.
So okay, let's start with information design and the presentation. It feels like they, all information is shown, like all needed information. Although,
well, so I was going to say, all of the information needed to beat each level is shown. Like the colors of the different power-ups is really nice. The color of the wires that shows where things are going. The way it just illuminates is really, really nice. I think the thing that's missing is that emphasis of what's the goal, if you're like, how am I being scored? Like, should I be, like, am I being timed, in which case it would be nice to have that timer on screen, or is it more about, the number of deaths, in which case it'd be nice to have that on screen to know which of those is really being emphasized?
Yeah.
And again, there's some bits of information that are shown that, by the final level perhaps don't need to be, like the controls. I need to get this one.
Yeah.
So I would say, so a good would be all key information is shown, an excellent would be all key information is shown clearly. I think all the information needed to play the game is definitely shown, so I think we're solidly at a good. I think it would be nice if there was a bit more clarity in terms of what I should be aiming to do. And sort of like clearing up bits of the UI that perhaps aren't needed anymore. Oh, hang on, no, I didn't actually go and get this, did I?
Yeah, so it feels like it's at least at the good level.
Yeah, possibly between the two, do you think?
Maybe, yeah, because a few small things, like, as you said, the WSD to move and space to jump isn't really needed.
Oh, cool, and we've got like a little credits and acknowledgements bit at the end, which is really, really nice.
Yeah.
So but we sort of, like there, we're given the total time and the total reset, the sort of with the same amount of importance, if you like. Can we not easily reset? Am I going to have to quit out of this and start it again?
Yeah, I think so. So I think it's between just a bit more, and they would have.
So, like a few minor sort of nitpicks there, but overall,
exactly.
Really good.
And what about the graphics themselves? I think they're consistent and effective from what I see. Simple, but it works really well.
Yeah, absolutely, and I would say appealing as well. Like, I really like the sort of like simplified, sort of glow in the dark neon look.
Yeah, exactly, and the lighting was also really.
Actually, I tell you what. Something else that, in terms of information design, the fact that those screens go by so fast.
Yeah, exactly.
That I think is.
We forgot about that.
I would actually, I think that means that I'm going to err on the side of good rather than between good and excellent.
I agree.
Which
just
is
a simple press space
good,
for next level would have been.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what about graphics? So we definitely are at the good level and feels
we're definitely at the excellent level. Yeah.
Yeah. And the lighting, it really fits well.
I think we're at the excellent level. So, audio, we've got some sort of ambient background noise. I'm not going to call it music, although it definitely sort of fulfills that role within the soundscape. But just sort of like ethereal background noise.
I see.
I say I'm not going to call it music. That's not because I'm being snobby about it. I don't know whether it's supposed to be ambient noise or if it is like a really, what's the word? I can't think of the word. All right, I'm going to call it background music. Walk that back. So yeah, there's background music, and there's some nice sort of like jumping sound effects. I'm trying to remember if there's one when we pick up a power up. One day I'll get to the top of this thing and we might find out.
So, do you think it's at the good level where it's complementary audio effects and music, or is it a bit below that? Because I mean, I can't really hear the sounds, so I don't know if it's a lot or.
I would say it is, So the sounds I can hear at the minute are certainly, complementary and appealing. There's a little ding as well when we pick up the thing. So there are some others. I was going to say, if it's just the jumping sound effect, then there's probably not enough to justify the excellent level. But there's some really nice sound effects when you use the different powers as well. And I'm pretty sure there's one for when you use the orange one as well.
Like the shooting.
Yeah. So I would say we're excellent for audio as well.
Or you mean good? Or
no, I mean excellent for the audio. Which would be complementary and appealing.
Yeah.
I was going to say.
I mean, I can't hear the audio side. It's all on your.
So the reason I would say if it was just the jump noise, it would be appealing. There just wouldn't be like enough use of it to justify it hitting the excellent. But I think with all of the other ones, they are all appealing together. Let's just listen to this one. Yeah, there's like a little ping when we shoot the thing, and there's like a little noise when this lights up as well, which is good. So I think we're excellent for the sound as well. I think again there's sort of more sophisticated stuff they could have done with it, like changing the sort of background music sort of like as the drama increases perhaps, or as the levels get more complicated.
Is there like a level end sound, or when you pass through the green door?
That's a great question. Yes there is.
Oh yeah, okay.
So they could actually, is there one for when I die? Because that's probably
that's
something I was thinking of. Like if there's like a reset noise, which is actually different to if I manually reset, which is kind of nice. So overall, I think solidly in the excellent. Some more like bits and pieces they could use to like really highlight the sophistication of it, like I say, changing the audio based on what the player's doing, for example, like the background audio, or like based on the complexity of the level or what the player's actually doing, or even what power up they've currently got. But that's the sort of thing that would like really push it up to prizeworthy. But as it is, solidly in the excellent, I think.
And that leads us to the mechanics of the game.
Cool. So we have a number of different mechanics. So overall, I think this level is I think my least favourite, because it's just stand on a platform and shoot a bunch of things, which feels a bit out of sorts with the rest of it. But we'll talk about that in a moment. We'll talk about it a bit sooner when we get to the controls. But in terms of mechanics, yeah, I would say. So, what mechanics have we got? We've got sort of typical platforming mover and jumper. We have power-ups that give you a double jump, a dash jump. We've got sort of switches that are activated. We've got firing things at the switches to activate them. We've got the sort of appearing and disappearing force fields. We've got these moving doors and things like that are unlocked.
And dark levels that.
Oh yeah, and the light, of course.
This one.
No, that was never going to go well. Maybe this time. No.
Oh yeah, that's hard. So yeah, there's definitely a set of complementary mechanics. Is it a wide set?
I would say it's a reasonably wide set. Yeah. Like it adds enough complexity that they can start combining them in interesting ways.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Cool. So that would put them excellent.
Excellent.
I think, again, sort of to reach the prize-worthy, they could add a little bit more sophistication in either the way they combine them or sort of adding an even wider set. But otherwise, yeah, I think they're an excellent. Cool. So
and the controls. So just one thing you probably can try it later. From what I remember when I played, when you were shooting the buttons, the orange buttons, it was quite forgiving. From what I remember, you could shoot quite a bit to the left or right, and it still would register, which I guess makes it a bit easier for the controls. But so you have to check it anyway in a bit. So how do they feel?
So overall, they're fine. I have said already that the camera controls feel a little bit twitchy, but balancing the sensitivity of things like that, particularly if you're trying to do something like first-person platforming, is always a tricky business. So I would still say, certainly the controls are reasonable, they're usable. They are... Here's the thing, they're intuitive. They could be a bit smoother. So they've almost sort of leapfrogged over good and towards excellent. So I think
that in between maybe feels like it would be.
Yeah, here's the thing. I think it's slightly better than good, but because of like parts of the twitchiness, and more so because the because of the precision required for a lot of these bits, like that particular balancing beam is very tricky because of the sensitivity of the controls, and like these like little bits of shooting here feels like they could have been tweaked perhaps a little more. Although you're right, there is some amount of forgiveness in how close those get.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think probably between a good and an excellent feels about right.
And have we found any big bugs or any bugs at all?
I don't think I've seen any bugs at all yet. Although, I'm trying to remember now. Have we?
I don't think so.
No.
I mean, except the minor graphical glitches, but that's not really...
I think that's something that we would file under graphics.
Yeah, graphics.
And for the most part, it's, it's like some textures are a bit overlapped, but that's hardly...
Yeah, not really... Yeah, so in this case, let's see. Game is reasonable complex, but there are infrequent minor bugs.
I think
so. Yeah, there aren't any bugs from what I can see.
Yeah, so an excellent.
And there is. Yeah, excellent would be game is reasonably complex and no obvious bugs.
It feels like that's probably where we are.
Yeah, I think that's exactly.
Okay, in which case, I need the orange one again, don't I? Let's have a look on how well they managed to fulfill the brief, which was all about level design and tutorials. So goals, risks, and rewards. So this is tricky, right? There's the immediate goal of get to the end of the level. Fine. But am I supposed to be doing that as fast as I can or as accurately and safely as I can?
I think you're just as a aside, you're not completing this level the correct way, because I think you're supposed to double jump on top and shoot that final button from within.
It's just because I'm, so used to like speed running strats and things like that. That's obviously that's the reason. Yeah.
So clear. Yeah. Because right now, here it says both the total time and the number of times that you reset, but you aren't really, like as you said earlier, there isn't like a timer for in the level itself. I mean,
so there is
or a number of resets.
So a good would be clear and coherent set of goals, risks, and rewards. And I think we're struggling that it's not super clear, like I say, whether we should be doing this really fast or really accurately. I mean, there's the ultimate goal of get to the end of the level, sure. But the problem is, I guess, the risk versus reward. Am I supposed to be, leaping over that balancing beam to try and take risky shortcuts to get a better time, or should I be being much more slow and methodical and trying to get it with like 0 resets kind of thing? So I think it feels like we may even be sort of like between a pass and a satisfactory there. Like there's
a limited.
Yeah, but it feels like if they'd have really lent into emphasizing what the reward or the goal was, it would be easier for us to say, oh yes, it's clearly this. But because we can't quite pick out what it is, it's a lot more limited. I think it's it's a bit more limited and a bit less coherent. So I think probably between a pass and a satisfactory in terms of that. There are definitely ways they could have. Well, I get the sense that they are trying to do this, but they haven't emphasized it enough that it's like obvious enough to us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and we've already spoken a little bit about why that is. So yeah, I think between a pass and a pass and a satisfactory is what fits there.
And what about the pacing? It does feel like it slowly rises and. Like the tension rises over time in a coherent pattern, it feels like.
Yeah.
Which would put it at the good at least.
Absolutely. And in fact, an excellent would be it rises over the time in a coherent and well-balanced pattern. And it feels like we are probably there for it. Like the levels themselves sort of increase in complexity. The mechanics we use to solve each one slowly increases in complexity. The combinations of them are really nice to see as well. It all feels, like very naturally a natural progression. So I think it's probably up at the excellent for that.
Yeah, I think I agree. And I guess that leads us to the tutorial, Mark. Which I suppose the whole game is like a big tutorial.
Yeah, it's kind of these sort of like puzzle platformer games sort of lend themselves very naturally to every level being a new tutorial for like a mechanic or or a final exam for the mechanics you've been taught so far. And using them in combinations in that way is really, really good. So where are we? A good would be gradual explanation of gameplay and controls fully aligned with play. For the most part, it's solidly there. The initial tutorial level that's just about movement and sort of understanding that red is bad and this is how you move is nicely introduced, and then they gradually introduce the other like movement mechanics and things like that, and then the switches. Like this level in particular I think is quite good because this is all done through the level design, right? We've learned that these things are power-ups. We're immediately shown that hey, this thing is orange and this thing is orange, there's probably some correlation between those two things. When we pick it up, we can shoot. We're told, hey, now that you've got the shooter, you can left click on things. And if I can line that up. So natural instinct is to shoot the orange thing with the orange thing.
Yeah.
Hey, it goes from red to green. This now we have a sense of not only what this power up does, but what these buttons do. This is like a really nicely done one. So I would say this is probably. Ooh, this I would say definitely in the excellent. Maybe
because
even
it
up
does
into the.
use the level design.
Yeah, I would actually say up into the prizeworthy. I would say, again, slightly let down by the fact that they've kept some of the early tutorial elements on the screen, unfortunately. So I would say maybe between an excellent and prizeworthy.
Yeah, I think you're right. Quite, it is pretty much almost there. Just a few minor things, and so that leads us to the core dynamic. And what do you think the core dynamic is?
So this is the thing, right? It ties into what we were saying about the goals. If the goal is to get to the end super fast, it's probably race to the end. If the goal is to do it sort of smoothly and effectively and think things through, maybe it's spatial reasoning. I would lean towards, because they've got these, buttons and sort of doors and things that open, it's probably leaning towards spatial reasoning. But what have they said it is?
So they do say that it's spatial reasoning. The player must juggle various power-ups to navigate each level, utilizing the various movement capabilities to traverse the space in unique and varied ways. This is aided by the lighting, which subtly acts as a guide to push the player in the direction they need to go, while also uniquely presenting the space the player needs to work around. And now they do say this, while as time is being measured, it could be argued that the game has the race to finish dynamic. The timer element is not the focus and is instead to provide a small amount of bonus incentive to the player to figure out the solution somewhat quickly. So that's what they say.
So I can see the reasoning behind it. I think, like we've already said, and I won't labour the point too much, because they're tracking both resets and time, it's tricky to know which of the two the game thinks is the most important. But in terms of the actual underlying mechanics of play, yeah, it's all about reasoning your way through a space. It's a case of, okay, I have to pick up this power up to get to this point, and that will let me get this power up, but then I can bring that down here to get in this place, which will let me get this power up to open this switch, to open the door to the exit. All of that is just very, very spatial reasoning, right?
Exactly. So let me see, they do, so that means so if we look at the mark sheet, a good would be a clear core dynamic that is supported by the primary mechanics. And
I think we're solidly there. I think we may even be partway towards the excellent. I think that sort of lack of clarity in the goals is so it feels like they've tried to add that additional supporting dynamic of race to the end to really sort of emphasize their core dynamic, but it feels like in this case it hasn't quite worked out, because it's actually sort of made the goals unclear in that way. So it feels like it's maybe between a good and an excellent.
Yeah.
Or what do you think?
I mean, the mechanics are integrated, yeah. And it's pretty much, so it's funny because if they didn't have the screen with the next level and the time, that would I guess made it very clearly into the excellent. But because they do say time and what else? And the number of resets, it becomes a bit muddier. So yeah, I think you are right between good and excellent.
Okie doke. And then the last thing on our list is feedback. So what feedback did they get, and how have they acted on that?
So the feedback we received was that we should consider much more closely about the feedback loop, particularly to consider what the goals are for the player and what are the rewards. We were also taught to consider how the player may express agency in the game, and we addressed both by adding multiple metrics for the player to chase as they become more familiar and more experienced with the game. A timer and a reset death counter. We also included a cumulative timer and reset counter, again displaying after each level and in the credits. And this gives the player the goal of getting to the end of the level and a reward with a high score in either the timer or the reset counter.
Interesting. Okay.
And the player may also express agency by choosing which metric to go for. And if I want to be fast, then I might not care. Not care as much about that counter. And do I take risk by cutting through the level, but risking to die, so on.
That's okay. So that's interesting, and I can understand their reasoning behind it. So I think So again, this is kind of interesting. I think they've made a really interesting interpretation of the feedback and the best way to act on it, but I don't think it's had the desired effect. So the fact that it's not had, the desired effect, the fact that by letting the player choose what the goal is has made the core dynamic that they're going for, and therefore the risk and reward unclear. Sort of puts it down at the pass. The fact that they have, made some interesting interpretations of how they could fix it and made the attempt to, would sort of put them towards the excellent. So I feel like this probably lands somewhere in the satisfactory. So the feedback's been addressed and the changes have been somewhat successful kind of level.
So they do. Let me check if they say something else. So they do choose to display the metrics only at the end to not make the primary focus of the game, and that the agency of the player can also be expressed in certain levels. For example, the 10th level, the player may express agency by skipping acquiring the light power-up once they gain familiarity with the terrain. I suppose that's...
I guess, but again, what's the benefit to doing that? Why is skipping the light a good thing that demonstrates skill, and how is the player rewarded for it? Arguably, it takes less time because they don't have to worry about picking up the light thing, but there's no real benefit. There's no real drawback to picking up the light thing, and in fact, it's probably going to make you faster if you pick it up, right? Even if you do know the level. So again, I see what they were going for, but I don't think it's had the desired effect there. So overall, I think that probably comes out as like a satisfactory. So it hasn't necessarily been as successful as they hoped, but because they've put some thought into answering the feedback, I think it brings that up a little bit. So
by that, is it between satisfactory and good, or?
Actually, you know what? Yes, it probably is, because it's not just the one thing; it's a number of things that they've attempted to make tweaks at. And like I say, although those changes haven't been as successful as they wanted, they are like they have made a somewhat of a positive impact. I think. Well, here's the thing: it has improved some areas. It's probably been detrimental in other areas. So overall, I think between a satisfactory and a good, you're right. Okay.
And that's all for this one, I think.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the next one. All right, and this is Last Bastion. So again, a really nice title screen. This one's animated as well. We've got some lovely background music again. Let's jump straight into it. Ooh. sound effects when we click on the menu and everything.
Oh wow.
Okie doke, so we've got quite a lot going on the screen initially. So we've got hearts, lives, I guess. We've got castle health, we've got coins, and we've got this, which I'm guessing is, there we go, so we attack, that contextually moves on, that's really nice. Is that, so I thought that was a coin. Ooh, that's flashing. Oh no, I can't move yet because I've not been told how to move. So that's kind of interesting. So there's that other target over there. And there we go, now we can...
Okay.
Okay, start wave or enter shop. But so this is a thing that I noticed was a little bit of a point of confusion in the expo. We're told to move. There's a big arrow over here. There's a thing explaining how we like platform and things like that. It is almost set up that you'd expect we're supposed to keep on running this way like a typical platformer. Handily, you know, I saw in the expo that actually what we need to do is we need to go back over here and start the wave, because this is not a tower defense game, I guess just a defense game. You have to defend the castle from stuff that is appearing from over here.
I see. Okay. Yeah. How much? Oh.
Sorry, I've lost a bunch of health.
Oh yeah, I see.
So one slightly interesting thing is that we've got both hearts and lives. So
yeah, that's actually...
I'm curious what happens when I die. I'm pretty sure we're about to find out. Yeah, there we go. So...
okay. So you respawn...
But there's like a bit of a delay, I guess, which lets stuff get past you. So there is a reason to have both the hearts and the thing. So that's the end of the wave. We've got 100 money. What can we buy in the shop? So we could repair the castle. It's kind of interesting that the castle and ourselves have different health bars. So we've got like 3 hearts and the castle has 5 blocks. You could easily replace this with like 5 hearts to make it sort of match up. But that's a bit of a nitpick. Let's upgrade the magic because that seems pretty good. We can't afford an extra life. I could upgrade the sword, but I'm kind of happy keeping these things at range.
Yeah.
And then we've got to start the wave manually like that.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, so this is a flying enemy. So again in the expo they did bring my attention to a known bug, which I think is that you can... There's some weird collision with one of these platforms where you can sort of jump a bit too high, let's say, but other than that, it all looks good. I'm going to struggle to get you though. Oh, I might have got it. Nice.
Yeah.
I should collect all this money before it disappears. Okie doke. Is that... How do we know how long a wave is?
Can you destroy those...
Oh, these boxes?
Boxes.
Yes. There's money. So I was going to say, I assume they're just... what's the word? Set dressing. But the fact that we were taught at the start to destroy boxes is a lesson that you have learned and are putting into practice. So that's good. So a little bit of extra bonus money, I guess. I wonder if those boxes respawn. That would be a nice treat.
Yeah.
Cool.
No,
keep saving
you still don't have... Yeah.
So we've got wave 3, and I guess this changes to start the wave once the wave's ended. It would be nice to know how long each wave is.
Yeah, exactly.
See, no, it changes back before the wave ends, so I guess it stopped spawning stuff, but there's still a bunch of stuff on the screen, so it'd be nice if that was tracked so I knew how far to go. So this isn't... Can I just stand here and just keep doing this?
Maybe.
Possibly a dominant strategy? I guess there are the flying ones we'd still have to tackle.
Yeah, for this specific wave, I suppose.
Yeah, maybe I should... I was going to say, maybe I should upgrade the sword, just to test that out. I kind of like the way we slide down the icy slope. Like, it's a bit annoying, but it's actually kind of a nice touch. Oh, right. I haven't started the wave. I'm so used to these things like starting after a timer, or, you know, when you leave the shop. So on the one hand, nice that the player has more control over it. On the other, maybe a little bit unintuitive. And I think just before...
Yeah, you don't tell the zombies, okay, now you can come.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it is helpful for...
Ooh, that one jumped.
Try to...
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. No, come back here.
Oh.
Wait, can I get him before he hits the ground?
Oh.
Wait, do you just live there now, I guess? Okay, bit of a small bug there. So, yeah, I think we can probably jump into the mark scheme in a second, but before we do, I guess the main thing that came up while we saw this in the expo is some aspects of the level design. So, because we're defending this static point, there's no real reason to leave this point, right? We can just kill everything from here. Like, it's kind of nice that there are two different routes that enemies spawn along, but it means I'm really disincentivized to sort of run along this one, because as I'm sort of killing stuff along this route, stuff is appearing along the top. I can technically get through here, but there's no need to be this far away, particularly as it's going to be hard to sort of traverse between the two of them, so it's much easier to sort of stand here where they join.
Yeah, I suppose.
Speaking of, let's upgrade the sword a bit, I guess, and I can't afford an extra life for any repairs. Gotta remember to start the wave. But yeah, we'll speak about that in a bit more detail as we reach that point in the mark scheme, I think. So let's start off with the overall quality, so things like the aesthetics, the mechanics, and the... oh no. Ooh, different enemy. I'm not doing great in a minute. So yeah, overall information design, that's what we start with, isn't it? So what information have we got? So,
quite a lot, it feels like. There's a lot of things going on.
Yeah, so we've got, our health, the castle's health, our money. Does the shop tell us... So we're not given any information over what the upgraded sword does. Presumably it's a bit more damage. Maybe it would be nice to know exactly how much damage. So is it, 100% upgrade, like 50% upgrade, that kind of a thing. Repair the castle, does that repair it fully, or does it just repair one block? I'm guessing just one block, yeah. Oh, and then it's 200.
So that
okay,
gets harder to repair.
Yeah, so that's actually a really nice way of controlling the pacing. And yeah, the other bit of information that we've already mentioned that it might be nice to see is how many things are in this wave, how many things are left, something along those lines.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see.
Ooh, that's a nice little refresher of the controls though if we press escape.
Oh, yeah, that's not... Oh, that's nice.
That one's big. So I guess that's maybe the... what's the word? The advantage of dashing out rather than just staying here, right? Like, it gives me slightly more time to deal with the big ones. But equally... Oh, I clicked out of the screen slightly. It means that I'm letting all of the ones on the other slope have a bit more free reign while I'm trying to get the big fella. And also, we don't know whether the guy is coming from the top path or the bottom path, right? If there are going to be like boss mobs or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
And is it safe to go back and shop at the castle, or are there still stuff coming? So I'm guessing there's not any stuff spawning because it said start the new wave.
Yeah.
But we've definitely seen there can still be enemies trickling in. So
exactly.
I would say this is probably between a satisfactory and a good.
Yeah, because they have quite a lot of information, but not everything is shown.
Yeah, there are a couple of bits that would be really, really helpful to know. So almost all of the key information is shown, which I think puts it between the satisfactory and the good.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so graphics. I think the graphics are quite nice. Overall well put together. It's very clear sort of what's what. I guess that's another bit of information design that could have been added. Is highlighting when enemies are taking damage, when we're taking damage. Oh, there we go. Final wave 7. what was I saying? So yeah, so like enemies flashing red when they've been hit and things like minor things like that. But in terms of the overall graphics, like even just like the little like snowflakes thing, it doesn't add anything to the gameplay, but it's a really nice little bit of extra polish.
Yeah.
So we've got consistent and effective graphics. Would we say they're appealing as well?
I mean, to me it feels, I think.
I guess there's like some like very minor inconsistencies between the resolution of our character and the enemies compared to like the terrain and things like that. Maybe
between the good and excellent.
Yeah, I think so. That seems. Oh no, I don't want to. There we go. I need to start the wave, don't I? That's what I'm saying. But yeah, otherwise like well chosen and well put together.
And what about the audio?
So we've got some nice background music. It's sort of suitably dramatic for a defense game. We've got some sort of combat sounds as we batter away at these poor fellas. We've got some jump sounds. So we get up here. Do we have a shop noise? I can't remember. Yeah, we've got some sort of little upgrade noises as well. So a couple of like UI bits and pieces. Can't remember if there's a noise when the castle starts taking damage. That would be particularly useful if we're over here and something has gone by on the top route. I'm going to go and start the wave. I forgot. I was going to say let's listen out for that and see what happens. There's a lovely sort of battle horn as the wave starts.
Wow.
So here's the thing, like that is all well. It's nice. It would be absolutely necessary if we didn't have control over when it started. So if it was on a timer, having that battle horn would be absolutely perfect because it's a really clear symbol of yes, there is a noise when the thing dies. Excellent. So overall, complementary and appealing effects and music. I think we're probably there.
Complementary and appealing, yeah.
So that puts them at the excellent level. I think there's certainly extra bits that could be added and extra bits of polish because aren't there always? So for example, as the waves progress, again, sort of the background music changes as the castle's health gets lower. The music becomes more dramatic, more urgent, or something like that. But overall, I think solidly in the excellent.
Yeah. Okay. So that leads us to the meaningful play part of the criteria, and we can look at the mechanics. So what do we have?
So we have standard sort of movement, jumping, attacking, that kind of a thing. We've got coins being dropped and apparently rolling down hills, which is kind of so there's interesting. It feels like this probably isn't intended, but there's like an advantage to blocking stuff at this.
But then you lost a few coins because they vanished.
Yeah, I wonder if that's an intended mechanic. Like I can use this slope to sort of like bottleneck them, but as a result, all of the money rolls away. Ooh, interesting. We have the collecting money. We've got the shop. We've got the different waves. It feels like we're sort of at like a relatively wide set of complementary mechanics. There's like some variation in the enemies as well. Their behavior doesn't change a lot, which is a bit of a shame, and I think that could really bump them up a bit. For example, there's like the giant trolls or the goblins or whatever, but they behave exactly the same way as the smaller ones. So maybe it'd be nice if some were weak to melee and some were weak to fire or whatever. And like these little ones, are they just stronger? And if they're stronger, why are they? I mean, I guess they're armored, but they look smaller and less threatening in a way. So I think there is a variety of mechanics. How do we think it's a wide enough variety? And I guess this. So I was going to talk about dominant strategies and things like that. It feels like that probably comes better under pacing though, because if I can just stand here for the whole game, that somewhat impacts the pacing curve, let's say. Although maybe this large fellow is going to put a dent in that strategy, we'll see. In fact, if anything, he's even more affected by the slope. Although the flying ones are causing me problems.
Yeah, exactly. And you're losing the money.
Yeah.
So it kinda.
So mechanics, yeah. Do we think this is a wide set of complementary mechanics? Or maybe...
I mean, it feels like there is quite a bit in the sense that, you have the punching and fireball, but then you also have the shop, which you can upgrade, and then the repairing of the castle and the castle health and your health as well, which you have to manage.
Yeah, it definitely feels like there could be some extensions to it. Like, so we could buy extra powers rather than just making the numbers for our current powers go up. And similarly, if the enemies sort of behaved differently, that would be like really good. But I'm pretty this is solidly in the good, and I'm still umming and ahhing about it. Quite
maybe between.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's very close to being excellent. But yeah, there's a couple of little bits and pieces that could be tweaked a bit. Controls. Yeah, overall the controls are fine. The movement is... I don't know how to describe it. A little bit floaty in places, but I think that's partly just the way the character interacts with the... When they come off the ramps, I feel like I get a ridiculous boost to acceleration and go soaring. But otherwise, yeah, the controls feel fine. The attack animation is maybe a little bit slow as well. Maybe I think that might be what I'm thinking of. I can also outrun my own fireballs. But yeah, overall, very reasonable controls. Mostly smooth, mostly very intuitive. The different interactions between, the store and things are all exactly what you'd expect them to be.
Yeah.
It's interesting that I can buy an extra life but not extra hearts now that I think about it. But I mean, I guess maybe you don't need to overcomplicate things in that way.
Yeah. So would you say so? We are definitely at the good level. Reasonable set of small usable controls.
I think we're at least at the good level. I think again we're probably at the excellent one. So obviously, because there's a limited number of things we can control. There's a limited number of or rather, what am I trying to say? All of the controls are, exactly what you'd expect. So yes, they're intuitive. Perhaps there's less mechanics at our disposal that we can act on. But I think it still probably hits the excellent for it.
Reasonable set of intuitive.
I guess the most unintuitive thing is that I have to keep going back to start the wave.
But that may be just you because you're used to.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's the thing. I would put them between a good and an excellent. But you're right. That's perhaps me bringing my biases to it. So I think, all right, let's call that an excellent. And then what is next? Next is the
bugs.
Oh no, next is the bugs. You're correct.
Which we have found a few minor ones, I suppose.
Have we? So there's the one that sort of we were warned about, but it's actually not been easy to find. It was something to do with there being something about this platform you could jump off, but I forget.
There was the part where the flying enemies, if you punch them in the right way, they get stuck somewhere over there.
I like that I can stand on this though, that's kind of nice.
Yeah, that's actually...
Okay, yeah, so a minor bug where some of the enemies don't quite reach the castle. Not hugely game-breaking, but yeah, okay. A bit of a noticeable bug, that one. Can we still use the shop? And it doesn't pause. Oh.
But
so where are we? Game is reasonably
So-
complex. There are infrequent minor bugs.
that's good, and
I think it's probably part way towards the excellent, because it's a particularly minor bug, and I don't. It doesn't happen every time, right? Yeah.
yeah, you have to punch them, and so they find such a way that they're on top of the gate,
In which
I
case,
suppose has like a yeah.
In which case, yeah, I think it's safe to say we can put them between a good and an excellent for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, now moving on to the brief. So the level design, goals, risks, and rewards, and I think this goes back to what I started saying at the beginning. I mean, obviously, like the ultimate goal, very obvious, defend the castle. Sure, that's a goal that we can all get behind. But the best way to achieve that is maybe, or I guess the intended way to achieve that is unclear, because it feels like the dominant strategy is mostly just to stand here and kill everything and get whatever gold you can, and maybe even ignore the flying enemies and use the gold that you collect from these just to repair the castle.
But then the castle repairing starts costing more and more.
True, so there is some. So I guess we'll cover this a little bit in terms of the pacing. But yeah, in terms of goals, risks, and rewards, there isn't much reason to what am I trying to say? We're not really incentivized to rush out to these bits of the level. Like, if the screen ended sort of here where I am now, or I guess, yeah, if it ended like, there we go, here, and they just spawn from here and here, I would, my experience of the game would be very similar, because I'm just standing here, I'm not rushing out and killing these things, because stuff is then getting by me, right? It feels like a bad strategy to go out this way. So if, for example, you know, those crates appeared during a wave or something like that, or like there was a reason to dash out and hit stuff that didn't put me at a massive disadvantage, I think that would be a bit better. So I guess, I mean, yeah, maybe I can. Oh, that's unfair. There we go. Because I can sort of like spawn camp these ones, but okay, I guess on this wave there aren't any in the lower one, so I can just run out here and. But the thing, yeah, it doesn't really matter if I kill them over here or all the way over there. I guess I've got slightly more time to react if I run out and kill them, but equally, if I kill everything here, all of the gold is in the same place.
But the thing is that they've also added the gold timeout, so it's not there forever.
That is true. I see everything's spoiling.
Which does kind of actually, you know, add to the.
Okay, yeah, that element sort of incentivizes a little bit more running out and grabbing stuff and then running back. Like the fact that all the ones that spawn on the top row then fall into this pit, actually, I think is also part of the problem, because it means I can really easily bottleneck them here.
Yeah.
Because they all end up coming from this slope. So yeah, the combination of the gold and the things both falling down it is.
Does help.
Yeah, the enemies sort of being affected by the slope makes it a bit too easy. The gold falling down a bit kind of balances that out a little bit. So where would we be with this? Satisfactory would be a coherent set of goals, risks, and rewards.
And we also, I don't think we talked about how, you know, you could choose to not repair the castle.
Ooh, good point, actually. The upgrades might be their saving grace here, because we can choose, you know, do we focus on magical upgrades, for example? Do we spread them around? Do we upgrade ourselves rather than protecting the castle? Okay, you know what? You've actually convinced
do we
me.
buy our do we buy more lives if we only have one left, and so on?
So I feel like I still have some issues with, you know, like this design, but maybe that falls better under pacing, because you're right. In terms of risks and rewards, that actually works quite well. So a good would be a clear and coherent set of risks, goals, risks, and rewards. And Excellent would be the same but well balanced as well. So do we feel it leads up to there, or? I think this is. I think it would be better balanced if it didn't have like this particular issue. If there was more more risk and reward involved. So I think that puts it solidly at a good at least, though.
Yeah. It's.
See, going into the pit's a terrible idea. Cool.
Yeah,
so yeah, I think it's
yeah.
Now pacing. Now there is an attempt to manage pacing because the waves get bigger. There are different enemies in them. There are presumably more deadly enemies in them, although I haven't noticed a lot of difference between them. I'm just going based on one's got a much bigger sprite. And the pacing of the is also somewhat controlled by the store because everything gets more expensive, particularly the castle health. So there's definitely a lot of attempts to manage pacing. I think it perhaps could have used a little bit of extra tweaking because, I mean, it's not flawless, right? This is not a perfect strategy because I'm still losing some castle health, I'm losing a bunch of gold, and I'm still occasionally taking damage from these things. But like this choke point right here really does undermine some of the pacing that they're working towards, I think.
Yeah.
But other than that, let's see. So satisfactory would be tension clearly rises over time. Yes, all of the sort of built-in mechanics definitely lead towards that. Good would be it rises over time in a coherent pattern. Yeah, stuff gradually gets more difficult, stuff gradually gets more expensive. And excellent is it rises over time in a coherent and well-balanced pattern. And I think this is the bit that it doesn't quite achieve because this bit isn't balanced as it should be.
Yeah.
I guess I mean I could be going and bopping some of these flying ones as well, really.
And at some point you won't be able to buy enough.
Yeah. Although I don't I still think this is the best strategy, right? I don't think actually running out and maybe playing it as I assume is intended would actually be better for me.
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, I think they're probably at a good still because they have a number of different mechanics that are contributing to good pacing. It's just the actual layout of the level itself is maybe against them a bit. Cool. So the next bit would be the tutorial.
Yeah.
So cleverly, I've just died on purpose there, so you can see the tutorial again.
Exactly.
So yeah, the actual initial tutorial is nicely done. So, there's no monsters coming. It's all about just here are the basic controls. But it is short enough that as an experienced player, it's just a case of left click, right click, and then move. It might be the sort of thing that in a fully developed game, you'd have some sort of flag or whatever saying, if the player has seen this once, don't bother showing it again. But as they're being very, very explicit that this game has a tutorial, that's fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, they tutorialize the basic concepts. They don't show us any sort of enemies within the, I guess, again, the little tutorial at the start, but the fact that the first thing they teach us is combat kind of preps us for we're going to have to combat things. We've got the text telling us we should be starting the way to the castle. So even if we do wander off into what we assume is actually a platformer level, we've got this tooltip telling us what we should actually be doing, which is good.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And yeah, like you pointed out, actually, these boxes have coins in them. We're told to destroy crates in the tutorial, and then actually destroying crates in the rest of the game has a purpose. Could have been used maybe a little bit more, like in Worms, like you get parachuted crates dropping out of the sky that again incentivizes you to run out and actually collect them and risk the castle a bit more. But in terms of going back to the actual tutorial itself, where would be a good would be gradual explanation of gameplay and controls, fully aligned with play. I think we're probably there. Like, the tutorial itself is quite minimal, right? We're told the bare minimum of the controls we actually need to use, and then for a lot of it, there's very little variation in that. And again, I think that's because there's very little variation in perhaps the rest of the game. If the different monsters behaved in a more clearly differentiable way, you'd be able to sort of showcase that off with the level design a bit more. But as it is, once you've seen one enemy, you've pretty much seen them all.
Yeah.
But I would say it's probably between a good and an excellent, because they are communicating some of the things like through the level design.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, for example, like making sure there's a crate that you... So rather than just saying, click to attack, they put a crate there that is then destroyed, and then they appear later in the level a bit. So yeah, I think between a good and an excellent. So there's bits and pieces that they could have... also, some of the contextual prompts about jumping, for example, appear over the platforms and things like that.
Oh yeah.
Which is nice. So yeah, I think probably between a good and an excellent for that. And again, I've forgotten that I actually have to start the wave before anything happens. Cool.
That leads us to the core dynamic that they had to base their game on. And
so what have they described it as? Yeah.
I mean, what do you think it is?
I mean, I would guess it is survival, because we're trying to, keep the castle alive for as long as possible, and eventually we fail. But yeah, what did they say it was?
Yeah. So they do say the core dynamic is survival. Enemies will approach in endless ways until either the castle is destroyed or the main character runs out of lives. Unlike chasing and evading, there is no way to finally win, and the goal is simply to survive as long as possible. The movement system and side camera is similar to a platformer, however this movement can not be used to beat the waves, ensuring the survival elements are always the main focus. And yeah, I think they're right. It's survival very clearly.
I mean, yes, it's definitely survival, and yes, the mechanics do lead to it. I'm a bit curious what they mean by, it's not a platformer, it's a survival game, because you can have this is a platformy survival game. To an extent.
It's like a platformer is not a core dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, despite that confusion, yes, you're right. It's very much survival.
Even when you lose, it says the way you managed to get to.
Yeah, exactly. Like
the
length of time you've survived is the high score.
Exactly.
And while you're destroying stuff within the level, you're not destroying it for the sake of it or to get a high score. You're destroying it to protect the castle and to survive for longer. So yeah, I would say we're at least at a good, which is a core dynamic supported by the primary mechanics. Does it reach an excellent, which is again that integrated set of mechanics?
That's a good question.
I think it's sort of reaching towards it, but because again, the set of mechanics is a little limited in that regard. Like we can upgrade basic attacks and things like that, but for the most part, what am I looking for? There's not necessarily a huge amount of progression as the player. The enemies and sometimes progress, but again, there's not a lot of variety between them. They're just sort of bigger, but they don't have different mechanics associated with them. So overall, I would say, yeah, the core dynamic is very clear. The mechanics will support that. There's other elements that they could have done to sort of bring that up even further, but I think between a good and an excellent seems pretty great.
Yeah, I think I agree. And I suppose that leads us to the final part, which is about the feedback that we gave them in the labs and how they responded to that. They have two main pieces of feedback, it seems, which is include different playstyles in the game and have different levels of success for different skill levels and playstyles. So for the first feedback, which is about including different differing playstyles in the game, they've added a ranged option in the form of a fireball, gave the player exactly enough gold at the start of the game to upgrade either the sword or fireball, but not both, allowing them to choose to specialize in melee or ranged attacks. And collecting the coins from both crates also allows immediately purchasing an extra life if they prefer a more cautious style. Then they've also made certain parts of the level easier or more difficult for each play style. The fireball is difficult in the cave, but easier in the flying part. The level features 3 split paths, which allows for a more defensive playstyle by staying near the castle, as well as a more offensive style by attacking the enemies near the points where they appear. And again, that gives the offensive playstyle more. What does it give? More time before the enemies reach the castle, but less room for knockback and if they made a mistake. The shop allows players to choose between spending their gold on upgrading their weapons for a more offensive style or buying lives and repairing the castle for a less risky option. So that was all for just the first piece of feedback.
Okay, so let's chat about that for a second first. So I like the way they've thought about balancing items in the shop, that you can't immediately upgrade everything and you can sort of choose to specialize. I understand their reasoning behind, do you want the more offensive playstyle where you rush out and do it? I think, as we've already said, they could have done more to emphasize that particular playstyle, because it feels like, because they've got the split paths, although there's like this point where we can switch between each of the 3, I guess, if we're counting the platforms above. It's, rushing out isn't quite as strong as just staying at the back, but maybe that's just my opinion and playstyle. But I don't think that that's necessarily worked out as intended. And what was the last bit? I've forgotten already.
Which one? So let's see. So it's pretty much that they added a ranged or melee option.
Oh, that was it. And you could choose to the risk reward of do you upgrade the castle or yourself, kind of a thing. Which, we already said was actually worked out quite well in terms of risk versus reward. And you said they had another bit that they'd discussed as well.
Yeah, which was different levels of success for different levels of skill and playstyle. So, so they do mention this. The first thing they did was coins disappear after a certain amount of time. When a group of enemies appear, skilled players will be able to use movement, knockback, or careful attacks to collect all the coins. Less skilled players will be challenged to defeat all the enemies and won't be able to collect all the coins, because they do vanish after a certain point. The ranged attack causes coins to spawn further away from the player, which makes the riskier sword attack more rewarding to the player, as coins are easier to collect, and with enough skill the player can collect all the coins and avoid taking damage using either playstyle.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's actually something I hadn't noticed. The coins appear further away if I use the... Let's test that out. Okay.
I think it's they meant further away because you normally...
it appears where it dies, so if I'm killing it from further... okay. I think if that could almost be a thing that they deliberately put in, so if I kill it with a fireball, the coin goes like whee, and sort of flies over there a bit. But still, I like that they've considered that as a mechanic. Because they're right, actually. That is another interesting bit of the risk versus reward that we didn't explicitly talk about. But yes, if you're trying to hang back and play safe, it's another way of sort of dealing with it. And the same with the coins disappearing over time. It does encourage the offensive player a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing. I think the... Sorry, just going back to the level design that I've hopped on a couple of times. It's not a case of do I stay near the castle or do I rush out that's the thing that's preventing it. It's the fact that because there are different routes and it's not easy to sort of juggle between them, that's what's stopping me rushing out, I think. If it was just the one route, then I would feel more comfortable about pushing out as far as I can. Which, yeah, in a way would have its own sort of benefits and drawbacks. But okay, so in terms of the feedback...
They just let me read the last few, because they do mention some other things. For the different levels of success, different levels of skill and playstyle.
Okay.
They do say the level design, that if you go, try to rush and go to the right, it gives you the longest amount of time before enemies reach the castle, but no opportunities to move between layers, which is exactly what you're talking, I suppose. In order to use this advantage, a player must be skilled at platforming and managing multiple groups of enemies.
So here's the thing. Maybe I'm just not that skilled, right? But it feels like they're aware that this not makes it a bad strategy, but like a very difficult one to manage. But okay, yeah, I see what they're saying. So I think, because here's the thing. Now I have to run.
And look at what they also say. The large slope immediately before the castle helps unskilled players defend against enemies that are almost at the castle.
I'm just an unskilled player. I'm a scrub, clearly.
And look at this. However, any coins will slide down the slope, making them harder to reach. So, they did actually think about that.
So that bit was intentional. Okay, that's really, really nice to see. Okay. Exactly.
So pretty much all we said, apparently they also noticed and actually did on purpose.
Okay, so that is good to see. I'm still of the opinion that the split level thing, again, maybe I'm just a scrub, but I don't think that. I think that kind of hurts the pacing or the balance a little bit. Or maybe it's just that this bit is like relatively what's the word? Like too strong in the grand scheme of things. Like there needs to be more things that can prevent me from doing this rather than incentivizing me running over there. However, in terms of actually the feedback and their interpretations and their things, okay, let's say while maybe I disagree with like the effectiveness of the outcomes of it, the fact that everything that we said is like, oh, I wonder if they did this intentionally, and it turns out, yeah, they did. That was their interpretation of the feedback and the way they've implemented it. I think actually reflects pretty well on it.
Yeah, and they also, there's also a few small points about the fact that they've also thought about how more skilled players wouldn't buy, health for the castle or for themselves, because they would be more skilled at not getting hit, for example. And again, it's like giving more play styles.
Yeah. Okay. So
people. So it's like they say all of that provides a positive feedback loop to exaggerate the difference between skilled and unskilled players. As a final remark, I suppose.
Okay. All right. Well, with that in mind, like I say, the interpretation. So, the interpretation of the execution of the feedback, I think, is pretty good. I think again, I would maybe argue the point about how effective some of those changes actually are. But in terms of them understanding the problem and sort of interpreting the feedback and doing something about it, I think we're probably up at, I would say maybe between good and excellent. I think the interpretation side of things are excellent, maybe brought down again because I think some of the changes haven't had necessarily the desired effect, but I don't think they've been detrimental in any way.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's everything for this game, and I think that's everything for this this batch of games. So we will end here, and I think we may be back again soon with another set of videos. So we'll see you soon.
Yeah, see you soon.